Welcome, Dungeon Hackers. Today we're going to do a reaction to a short video about a reaction to a reaction. It's really reactionception, and it has to do with opportunity attacks. This is something we talked about a year ago, but it recently popped back up thanks to a post on a channel called Insight Check. I'll have a link to the original video in the description below, and it does a really good job of explaining why this interaction might and might not work. But we're going to go ahead and just do a really quick breakdown of what they're discussing. In the 2024 version of Dungeons & Dragons, the opportunity attack rule says you can make an opportunity attack when a creature that you can see leaves your reach using its action, its bonus action, its reaction, or one of its speeds. To make the opportunity attack, take a reaction to make one melee attack with a weapon or an unarmed strike against the provoking creature. The attack occurs right before the creature leaves your reach. Now, there was a slight wording change that happened between 2014 and 2024. In 2014, it didn't say that you could make an opportunity attack when a creature leaves your reach. It said a hostile creature. So they removed the word hostile from the definition. Now, this has an interesting interaction with the feat warcaster. One section of the warcaster spell says, when a creature provokes an opportunity attack from you by leaving your reach, you can take a reaction to cast a spell at the creature rather than making an opportunity attack. The spell must have a casting time of one action and must target only that creature. Again, there was a slight change in the wording from the 2014 version. In the 2014 version, it again said hostile creature. So this means that in theory, you could make a opportunity attack against a creature that's not hostile, for example, one of your party members, and using the Warcaster feat, you could cast a spell on them instead of attacking them, because you wouldn't want to do damage to your party members, probably. So this would allow for the casting of a leveled spell that normally requires an action as a reaction when a party member runs past you. That sounds really powerful, but there's not a whole lot of spells that really fall into that. And again, they talk about that in the other video, so definitely go check that out. But my take on the whole situation is that I think it probably works. But that's with the caveat that, as with all things in Dungeons & Dragons, it's your game, and your table can play however you want. So before you try something like this, discuss it with the table, discuss it with your dungeon master, or if you're the dungeon master, discuss it with your players. But it's really completely up to you. Now, with that said, there is some stuff that was mentioned by Chris over at Treant Monk's Temple, and I will link the video below to that as well, that I'd like to touch on.
But honestly, if I was pinned down to guessing, my guess is the designers weren't even considering the possibility of using opportunity attacks with allies via the Warcaster feat. So whether they used the word enemy or they used the word creature, in their minds probably made no difference.
So in this first clip, he says that he doesn't think that the developers actually thought about this change. That to the developers, it was just a slight wording change. It all meant the same thing. Here's the first place I'm going to push back a little bit. I don't think that when they were writing this new book, they hand-typed each section. Both of these two sections had one word changed and removed. My guess is that they probably copied and pasted it. And if they copied and pasted it, which I think they did, then anything that was different was intentionally taken out. And I don't think it was to lower the word count in a almost 400-page book. Removing 8 characters is not going to make any difference. They've also added a section that specifically calls out attacking and fighting with party members. Combat is for enemies. Some rules apply only during combat or while a character is acting in initiative order. Don't let players attack each other or helpless creatures to activate those rules. Well, one point is that this is not really about attacking your teammates. This is more about things like the barbarian keeping their rage going by stabbing a pack of rats or something like that every single round to keep their abilities going. They don't want you to attack your party members to trigger something when you're not in combat. But again, this is a general rule and not a specific rule, because there's always going to be outlying situations that could come up. Maybe your ally has been possessed and is attacking the party. Well, there's certainly a reason to attack your ally in that situation. You might be able to say they were hostile, I'll give you that. But what if there's something coming down a hallway, like a boulder in the Indiana Jones movie? And your party member is stunned or something. Well, you as a player can use your attack action to push them out of the way. That's a situation where you might need to attack your teammate. I can speak from experience saying that even within combat, I've been hit by AoEs that were thrown by my party members. So there are definitely situations where you would hit your party members, and this doesn't even take into account if there's some antagonism between a couple of the party members, or you're playing in a campaign with evil characters. So this is obviously just a general rule and not the gospel truth that can never be broken. And that's the general reason why I think that it is obviously something that they took into consideration when they made the change. But there's definitely a lot of people that agree or disagree with this. On Insight Check's channel, he discussed that he did a poll, a super scientific poll on your Facebook section, but it did have 2,000 responses, and it was split almost right down the middle as to whether or not this is something that could be done. And so he would like to hear from the developers as to whether or not this should be allowed. I would agree, and I would like to know whether or not the developers intended for it to work this way. And that leads us into the next point, where I fundamentally disagree with Chris over at Treant Monk's Temple.
Here is where I disagree with Jeremy most strongly. He says he would like an errata or clarification as to whether it works or not. And that seems like the most reasonable thing in the world to say. But I'm going to circle back to the start of the video. This is not a new discussion. This potential interaction was identified right after the Player's Handbook came out. That was almost a year ago. And I saw it talked about all over the place. So this, I don't know if it's common knowledge at casual tables, but for people who are in the community and, you know, they read Reddit posts and they post on social media and they watch YouTube, they knew about it. They've known about it for a long, long time. And we have an even split on that poll, which suggests to me we've had tables using this interaction and tables that have decided not to use this interaction for up to nearly a year now. And in most cases are probably fine with the decision they made. And if they aren't, then they change their minds.
Now in this clip, he suggests that because players have been using this rule for a full year, and this is something we've discussed before, that there's no reason to change it. And in fact, that it may be detrimental to even have the developers say anything about it. I think this is absolutely a ridiculous point. That would be like saying we don't ever need any more errata, ever. We don't need any rules clarifications, ever, because, well, some people have already known about this. I can tell you for a fact, nobody at any of the 3 tables I play at, other than me, is aware of this. I'm running one of the games and playing in 2 of them. One of my characters just got a new feat and took this. So this has never been a concern at any of our tables before because I'm the only one that knows about it and I just got the ability to do it. So I was never going to have a conversation with my table or my dungeon master in that particular campaign because it had no effect on it. But now it's becoming an issue because now it is something that is possible within the game. So even though I've known about the rule for a year, it's never been an issue. But now that it is going to become an issue, it would be nice to know what the developers intended for it to be. Now, does that mean that if they intended for it to be one way, we can't play it the other? No, of course not. As I discussed earlier, this is your game at your table. I mean, I've got a video, and I'll link that up here above, talking about the homebrew rules that we use. And I've heard Chris over at Treant Monk's Temple and many other people on a lot of other channels talking about homebrew rules. I don't know any tables that don't use some kind of homebrew rules. So even if the devs do come out and say this is how it's intended to work, you could still play it however it best works at your table. But there's going to be new groups playing. There's going to be new people coming to the game. At least we certainly hope so. And if that's the case, we'd like to know how everything is intended to work. As he stated, they've been using it or not using it at tables that he's been at for a year now. But that doesn't mean that things can't change. This is an ever-evolving game, and as new books come out and new rules and new combinations, maybe new spells, maybe this becomes too powerful, and then you don't want to use it at your table anymore. But knowing what the intentions were in the first place can't possibly hurt anything. If the tables are already using it, and the devs say they don't want it to work that way, I don't think any of the tables are going to suddenly stop using it. And vice versa is true as well. If the tables already aren't using it because they think it's entirely too powerful, and the devs come out and say this is how it's supposed to work, I don't think those tables are suddenly going to start using it anyway. But this gives guidance to new players or players that haven't ever used it before but would like to start using that, so that we know how it's supposed to work, and then we can make an educated choice on our own. And I think that's the key point. This is a game with hundreds of pages worth of information and rules, most of which we use, but the ones we don't like, we ignore or change to fit our tables anyway. Having more information, in my book, is never a bad thing. I would like you to tell me in the comments below what your thoughts are on this. I'm sure that just like all the other polls, it'll be 50-50. Some people will hate it, and I'm an idiot for thinking you should be able to do it, and other people will love it and think that those people are idiots for thinking you shouldn't be able to do it. But let's just keep it nice in the comments. We all have different opinions, and our tables are all different, and we don't know what other people's tables are like. But I am curious how many people think that you should be able to do this. And while you're down there leaving a comment, feel free to give me a thumbs up and subscribe so you can see more of my videos as they come out. And even though earlier I linked to a video above about homebrew rules, I'm going to include it right here as well so that you can just click right on this and go check out the homebrew rules that we use. And until the next video, keep on hacking the dungeon.